The lobby of Meridian Systems smelled like new carpet and expensive coffee, the kind of coffee nobody actually drank, brewed twice a day into a silver urn beside a wall of framed patents. She was mid-sentence when she noticed him through the glass. A delivery driver, late 40s, work pants with a paint stain on the left knee that no amount of washing had fully lifted. He was carrying a flat of water bottles toward the service entrance, and his truck, a '98 GMC with a cracked side mirror held in place by electrical tape, idled unevenly in the fire lane. Diane Rourke, 3 weeks into her tenure as CEO of Meridian Systems, said something to the man beside her. The two of them laughed. The driver did not look up. He signed the delivery receipt, turned, and walked back to his truck. On the patent wall behind Diane Rourke's head, the fourth name from the left read, Marcus T. Webb. Meridian Systems was not a household name, and that was intentional. The company operated in the quiet middle layer of American industry, designing and licensing precision sensor arrays for infrastructure monitoring, bridges, water treatment plants, gas distribution networks, the kind of systems that nobody thought about until they failed, and when they failed, the failure was measured in lives and not just dollars. For 19 years, Meridian had been led by its founder, Gerald Sato, a civil engineer who wore the same brand of khaki pants every day and kept a stress ball shaped like a hard hat on his desk. Sato had retired in January. The board, pressured by two activist investors and a flat quarter, had gone outside. They'd hired Diane Rourke from a logistics company in Atlanta, where she'd cut costs by 31% in 18 months. She was competent. That was not in question. She understood supply chains, vendor consolidation, and efficiency ratios. She believed in those things the way some people believe in gravity, not because they had tested it, but because it had always held. What she did not yet understand was that Meridian's margins were not the result of inefficiency waiting to be corrected. They were the result of a very specific kind of patience, the kind that lived in the field, not on a spreadsheet. Marcus Webb understood that. He had understood it for a long time. He lived 20 minutes from the Meridian campus in a 2-bedroom house on Orchard Terrace that needed new gutters, and had a chain-link fence his daughter, Lily, had learned to climb before she learned to ride a bike. Lily was 6. She had a stuffed rabbit named Biscuit who had lost one eye in the washing machine the previous spring and had not complained about it since. Lily's mother, Claire, had died of a pulmonary embolism 2 years and 4 months ago, 3 days after Lily's 4th birthday. Marcus had been in the hospital parking lot when it happened, on the phone with a contractor about a calibration issue in a sensor array installed beneath the Callaway Street overpass. He had gone back to work the following Monday. His supervisor at the time had told him he didn't have to. Marcus had said simply that the array needed checking. It had. Marcus Webb had not been a delivery driver for Meridian Systems. Not exactly. His official title, for the last 11 years, had been Field Systems Consultant, a classification that existed in Meridian's HR database under a legacy contractor designation that Gerald Sato had created specifically to keep Marcus on the payroll after Marcus had declined. Twice the offer of a salaried position with an office. He drove his own vehicle. He set his own hours. He carried a Meridian badge that most of the building's newer employees had never seen and wouldn't have known how to verify. What he did in practice was this: he drove to sites, he listened, he measured. Not metaphorically. He carried a Fluke 289 multimeter, a set of calibrated acoustic sensors that he'd modified himself using components sourced from 3 different manufacturers. And a battered field notebook, graph paper, not lined, in which he recorded readings in a handwriting so small it required a magnifying glass to audit. On the 14th of March, 7 weeks before Diane Rourke noticed his truck in the fire lane, Marcus had driven to the Whitmore Water Treatment Facility in Caldwell County. The facility used a Meridian array, the MX7 series, to monitor pressure variance in the primary intake pipe. The system had been installed in 2019 and had passed every scheduled inspection since. Marcus had not been asked to go there. He had gone because 3 consecutive weekly data exports from that site had shown a 0.003-second delay in the sensor's response interval. A number so small it was below the threshold, the monitoring. Software flagged as significant. Most people reading those reports would not have noticed. Some people who noticed would have dismissed it. Marcus had pulled the previous 14 months of data, printed it on his home printer, and laid the sheets across his kitchen table after Lily was in bed. The delay was not random. It was periodic, appearing every 9 days, plus or minus 4 hours, correlating with the facility's primary pump cycling schedule. He drove to Whitmore at 6:40 in the morning, signed in at the front gate, and walked the intake corridor alone. The facility manager, a man named Horace, followed him at a respectful distance and said nothing. Marcus stopped at junction 4C. He crouched. He put his hand flat against the pipe housing, not to feel vibration, but to feel temperature. Then he stood, took 3 photographs with his phone, and wrote 4 numbers in his field notebook. "You've got microfracturing in the epoxy seal at this junction," he said. "The thermal cycling from the pump schedule is widening it by approximately 0.2 millimeters per cycle. You're maybe 60 days from a stress failure." Horace stared at him. "The inspection report from November said, the inspection protocol doesn't include thermal response mapping at this junction type." Marcus was already writing the remediation procedure. "It should. The repair cost Meridian's insurance partner $47,000. The failure it prevented, a primary intake rupture serving a county of 80,000 people, had been modeled by a university engineering team 2 years earlier at somewhere between $12 and $19 million, not including litigation. That report sat in Meridian's engineering archive, folder 7F, 4th shelf from the bottom. Diane Rourke had not yet been given a tour of the archive. Gerald Sato, who had commissioned the report, had tried to brief her on it in his transition document. She had thanked him for his thoroughness and moved the document to a subfolder titled Legacy Reference. On a Tuesday evening in late April, Marcus picked Lily up from the after-school program at Heron Elementary at 5:15. She was sitting on the bench outside with Biscuit in her lap and her backpack between her feet, watching a sparrow on the sidewalk. In the car, she held Biscuit against the window so the rabbit could see out. "Dad," she said after 2 traffic lights. "Yeah. Do you work at a building or outside?" He considered this. "Both," she thought about it. "Is outside better?" "Sometimes." She appeared to accept this. "Then Tyler's dad works at a big building and he has a special parking spot." "Is Tyler's dad happy?" Lily looked at him. "I don't know. I don't ask Tyler's dad stuff." Marcus kept his eyes on the road. They ate dinner at the kitchen table, pasta with jarred sauce and a salad that Lily mostly picked around. Biscuit sat in the chair beside her. Marcus had stopped mentioning that Biscuit was not a person. It had not made any difference, and he had run out of reasons to care about it. After Lily was in bed, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with his field notebook and a cup of tea that went cold while he was reading. His neighbor, Renata, knocked on the back door around 8:30. She was 61, a retired school librarian, and had been quietly helping with Lily since Claire died, not out of pity. She'd been clear about that, but out of the straightforward belief that children needed more adults in their lives than one. She sat across from him with her own tea and looked at the papers spread across the table. "You found something," she said. It was not a question. Marcus looked at the notebook. "Maybe. Meridian thing. New management's been talking to a vendor called Stratus Industrial. They want to replace the MX7 maintenance protocol with Stratus's automated inspection system. Cut the field cycle by 60%. Renata wrapped both hands around her mug. "And the Stratus system doesn't include thermal response mapping." He paused. "It also doesn't include anyone who drives to a site at 6:40 in the morning because a number looked slightly wrong." Renata said nothing for a moment. "Did you ever tell anyone officially about the Whitmore thing? Filed a report? And..." He turned a page in the notebook. "The new contracts division is run by a man named Preston Hale. He countersigned the Stratus proposal 2 weeks after the Whitmore repair was completed. The repair that the Stratus system would not have caught." A pause. "He didn't mention the repair in the proposal." Renata set down her mug. "Marcus, that's not an oversight." He said nothing for a moment, then he closed the notebook. "Claire used to say the same thing," he said. "About people who leave things out on purpose. It was the first time he had said her name aloud in 3 weeks. Renata did not point that out. She just stayed until the tea was finished. Preston Hale had been at Meridian for 4 years. He had come from a consulting firm in Dallas and had arrived with a specific skill set. He was very good at making decisions look inevitable. By the time a proposal reached the board under Preston Hale's signature, it had usually already been decided. The committee meetings, the review cycles, the comment periods, these were architecture, not process. The real conversation had happened earlier, in a restaurant or over a phone call that nobody had taken notes on. Marcus understood this not because he was cynical, but because he had watched it work. The Stratus industrial proposal was structured in 3 layers. The surface layer was efficiency, a 40% reduction in field service costs, achieved by replacing contractor site visits with Stratus's remote diagnostic platform. The platform was real. It worked. For standard systems under standard operating conditions, it would have been adequate. The second layer was the contract terms. Stratus's pricing model included a 5-year lock-in with a penalty clause for early termination. Buried in Schedule D, page 41 of a 47-page document, was a liability transfer provision. In the event of a diagnostic failure, responsibility shifted to the client, not the vendor. Marcus had requested the full contract through Meridian's internal document portal. The request had been flagged and held pending contract sensitivity review, a status that did not exist in Meridian's stated policy but had apparently been added to the portal configuration too. Months earlier, he did not request it again. He called a former colleague named Vince Ockhaffer, who still had access to the archived engineering documentation from the Sato era, and asked a single specific question. Had the Stratus system ever been benchmarked against Meridian's field protocol? Vince called back in 40 minutes. Once, 2021, pilot program Kern County Water District, they pulled it after 8 months. Why? Missed a stress indicator on a secondary junction. Nothing failed, but the field team caught it on a manual review that happened to overlap with the Stratus cycle. A pause. The report was filed internally, never published. Marcus asked who had authorized the 2021 pilot. Vince was quiet for a moment. Authorization came from the vendor side through a consulting intermediary. Name of the intermediary? Company called Harker Solutions, out of Dallas. Marcus wrote the name in his notebook. He already knew the name. Harker Solutions had been Preston Hale's employer before the consulting firm in Dallas, before his time at Meridian. Before, apparently, his time positioning Stratus as an inevitable choice for a company whose new CEO had not yet been given a tour of the engineering archive. He did not move quickly after this. He drove to the Whitmore facility again on a Saturday morning, Lily in the passenger seat with Biscuit in her lap. He told her it was a work errand. She asked if the building had a vending machine. He said he didn't know. She said that was okay. While she sat in the car coloring, he went inside and photographed the repair log at Junction 4C. He photographed the original inspection report from November. He photographed the sensor calibration sheet, the thermal variance addendum he had filed himself, and the facility manager's signature confirming the repair completion. He drove home. He scanned everything on the flatbed scanner in his second bedroom and saved the files to a USB drive and to an encrypted cloud folder with a password that was a combination of Claire's birthday and Lily's rabbit's name. He also that afternoon printed a single document, a clean 12-page summary of the Whitmore incident, the Stratus proposal, the Harker Solutions connection, and the suppressed 2021 pilot findings, and placed it in an envelope addressed to the chair of Meridian's audit committee. He did not mail it yet. He put it on the shelf in the hallway, beside Lily's library books and a photograph of Claire at a hiking trail in Vermont, taken 3 summers before she died. She was not looking at the camera. She was looking at something just past it, her hand raised slightly, as if she was about to point out something worth seeing. On Monday morning, Marcus received an official notice from Meridian's Contracts Division. His field consultant designation was being reclassified pending a comprehensive vendor audit. During the audit period, all site visits under his designation were suspended, effective immediately. The notice was signed by Preston Hale. Marcus read it twice. Then he went to the shelf and picked up the envelope. He mailed it on the way to drop Lily at school. Lily said the mailbox was tall. Marcus agreed that it was. The audit committee meeting was scheduled for a Thursday. Marcus was not invited. He drove to the Meridian campus anyway, arriving at 7:50 a.m. in the GMC with the cracked mirror. He signed in at the security desk. His badge cleared. The suspension had applied to site visits, not building access, because nobody had thought to update the two systems separately. He walked to the archive room on the second floor, unlocked it with his field key, and sat at the table inside with his field notebook and a copy of every document he had filed in 11 years. At 9:15, Preston Hale walked past the archive room door, stopped, and looked through the window. He opened the door. Your site access was suspended. Site access, Marcus said. This is the archive. Hale looked at the table, at the documents. Whatever you're doing, I'm auditing. Marcus turned a page. You called for a vendor audit. I'm a vendor. Hale left. He came back 12 minutes later with a woman from legal named Sandra Chu, who explained, carefully, that Marcus's presence was not appropriate given the pending review. Marcus handed her the second copy of his 12-page summary. He had printed two. He had given the original to the audit committee chair by mail. He had emailed a third copy, the night before, to the Engineering Oversight Board of the State Infrastructure Authority, the body responsible for certifying Meridian's inspection protocols. Sandra Chu read the first page. She read the second. She said, "Excuse me for a moment." She did not come back. She sent someone else, a younger man Marcus didn't recognize, who said nothing, just stood near the door. The audit committee convened at 10. Marcus was not in the room. He was in the hallway outside in a chair with his notebook on his knee when Diane Rourke came out of her office and saw him there. She stopped. He looked up. She was wearing a charcoal blazer and holding a coffee cup she hadn't touched. She looked at him the way people looked at things they needed more time to understand. "You're the delivery driver," she said. "No," he held up his badge. "I'm your field systems consultant." She looked at the badge, then at the archive room door, then at something past both of them that wasn't visible. "Preston Hale," she said, not a question. "Schedule D." Page 41. She was quiet for a moment. "Why didn't you come to me directly?" Marcus looked at her steadily. "I tried the process first." She didn't answer that. She looked at the floor. Something moved across her face, not embarrassment exactly. Something more like the particular discomfort of a very capable person, realizing they have been used as a surface. At 11:40, Preston Hale left the building through the side entrance. His key card was deactivated at 11:47. Marcus knew this because he heard the facility's manager's radio from the hallway. Hale's car, a silver Audi third spot from the entrance, was still in the lot at noon. At 12:05, Diane Rourke came back to the hallway. "The straightest contract is on hold," she said. "We've referred the Harker connection to outside counsel." Marcus nodded. She looked at him for a moment. "The patent wall," she said. "In the lobby I saw your name." "I know." She hesitated. "I owe you." "No," he said. "You owe the next person." He picked up his notebook and his jacket. Lily had a half day. He had 40 minutes to get to Heron Elementary. The following week passed quietly. Marcus received a formal letter from Meridian's legal department, informing him that his field designation had been restored. His suspension had been reversed with documentation. And per a board resolution passed 2 days after the audit committee meeting, the field inspection protocol would be submitted to the State Infrastructure Authority for formal inclusion in the certification standard. Not as a reward, as a requirement going forward for any company operating infrastructure monitoring systems under state contract. He read the letter at the kitchen table in the morning before Lily was awake. He folded it and put it in the drawer where he kept the important papers: Lily's birth certificate, Claire's death certificate, the house deed, and a handwritten note Claire had left him once. Years ago, when he had driven 4 hours to a site without telling her. The note said, "I know why you went. I just needed to say I noticed you were gone." He had never thrown it away. Renata came by that evening. She didn't ask what had happened. She had read enough of Marcus's face over 2 years to know when something had closed rather than opened, and she didn't push on closed things. She helped Lily with a reading assignment while Marcus made dinner. Biscuit attended the reading assignment. Lily insisted that Biscuit was almost done with the book, which was not possible, but Renata said she'd wait. After dinner, while Marcus washed dishes, Lily came and stood beside him. "Dad," she said. "Yeah. Are you still going to drive to buildings?" He handed her a dish to dry. "Yeah. Is your truck going to get fixed?" He looked at her. "What do you mean?" "The mirror," she gestured vaguely. "Tyler said your truck looks broken. It works." She dried the dish carefully, the way she did everything, with a kind of focused attention that she had not gotten from him and had not, he thought, been learned. It had arrived in her already. "Tyler's wrong," she said. He turned back to the dishes. Renata left at 8:30 after Lily was in bed. She stood at the back door for a moment. "Are you all right?" "Yeah." "Is Meridian all right?" He considered this. "It will be. Because of what you did," he shook his head once, "because they changed the protocol." "I won't be there forever." Renata looked at him for a moment, then nodded. She was the kind of person who understood the difference between a person being thanked and a problem being fixed. Claire had been the same way. Marcus had spent his whole working life surrounded by systems, pipes, sensors, calibration schedules, response intervals, and what he had learned slowly was that the systems mattered more than the people running them, because the systems stayed. The people didn't. He locked the back door after Renata left. He turned off the kitchen light. He stood in the hallway for a moment in the dark, beside the shelf with the library books and Claire's photograph. He put his hand on the shelf, not on the photograph, just near it. Then he walked to his room, and the light in the hallway went off, and the house was quiet, and outside on Orchard Terrace. The GMC sat in the driveway with its cracked mirror pointing at the streetlight, catching a slant of orange in the dark. The way anything broken will still catch light if the angle is right.